Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown and
Biavanti.
And we are talking about 7 common website project problems and how to fix them. The first one is switching up the contact halfway through a project. Why is that a problem?
It's a problem because a lot of times you don't get consistent communication. So what was said to the original person doesn't get transferred to the new person. We go through a pretty in-depth kickoff process. So people sometimes get confused as to why something's designed a certain way, but it's a lot clearer if you go through the very beginning of the process with us and you're the person who finishes the process with us.
For instance, we always emphasize something called story brand throughout the kickoff with our clients. And we talk about how you are not the hero of the story, how your customer is the hero of the story. You are just the guide in support of their character transformation. Now, this means a lot to our design process. Everything that we do is around it. And if you are not on board with that, you actually probably shouldn't be a client, to be honest. But we really emphasize that both in the sales process and in the kickoff. And then somebody comes in halfway through and doesn't understand that. So that's kind of why it's really important. 2, business model changing in the middle. So whether it be like you're adding new states, or let's say you were into emergency services before when we kicked off, and then you're trying to go after non-emergency restoration projects or something after. These things really kind of mix up what the site should be about. And so it's really important that you have your business model solid first. 3, we believe having a clear scope is incredibly important for your website project. We help people get to the appropriate scope, but you should make sure to stick to that too. So really actually look at that part of your proposal and ensure that there's specific things in there, that the scope, the deliverables are really clear. We find projects go way smoother when that's the case. Number 4, big mistake, functionality not clearly defined in proposals.
Yes, so if you know that you're going to need something outside of the realm of a WordPress website, just talking to us about that in the very beginning is so much easier for us to give a suggestion. Otherwise, if we're talking about that halfway through development, we can't give you even our ideal scenario because sometimes we will have to make concessions based on timeline and based on your budget. So having those discussions with us up front is super important.
So for example, we always put like contact forms, drop-down menus, show height elements, all in the proposal as very clearly defined items. If you don't see e-commerce in there, then we're not selling you e-commerce in the website, right? So it's just these things where it's a big functionality item. It should be outlined up front. No matter who you work with on a website project, it's super smart to make sure all of that functionality is in the proposal so no one gets blindsided, whether that be you or your website design company.
And I think it's really important if you don't know what something means or if you are wondering if it might be outside of the functionality scope, always ask us and we can either give you a suggestion or we can tell you that's something we can incorporate or, hey, this is outside of the scope of what we originally decided.
And we don't try to make that super stringent, but definitely with the bigger items, that's really important for us. Number 5, not having internal stakeholders view the designs before sign off. So you know who on your team, whether it be the CEO or Alex in marketing, who really have a strong opinion about these things. It's important to review as a team internally and to get those pieces of feedback. You know, we use Envision for comments so that you can make comments anywhere on the design and make changes. We are so much cooler about changes in that design process than later on once we've actually built it out. It's like, you know, it's making changes on a blueprint versus making, adding a whole new room once you've built the entire house. So that's the difference. And that's why it's so important that we ask you to review those and then sign off on them in our, DocuSign. 6, underestimating the amount of time content takes.
Yes. Writing content for your website and gathering it, getting photos, it does take a lot of time. It's worth it. It's valuable time for you to spend. But we do need you to work with us on getting content, images. We suggest headlines, but those are open to interpretation. So you're more than welcome to change it if you would like. but just making sure that you're dedicating some of your time to getting us content in a timely manner.
And just so you know, we usually do that after design sign-off, so it's a little later in the process. We're not asking for the feedback of the headlines and all the copy in the design sign-off process, but later. But it's a lot of work, and some people just don't get that it's going to be a lot of work. So we try to talk about that in the sales process.
And we'll tell you exactly what content you need to have written, and we'll give it to you in a fairly easy way for you to gather from your team. If you need to have other input involved, then it makes it very easy to tap those people that you think would be good for writing on the website.
7, having unrealistic timelines. Now, we give everybody a 100-day timeline or a 60-day timeline if we have you on a specific situation. But there is this mindset around timelines that if somebody's very, very late on, let's say, design sign-off or something, everything moves back. You have to understand everything we do is contingent on sign-off from your team. So if it's a 100-day timeline, and let's say we have design done in 40 days, but we don't get feedback until 60 days, everything in the timeline is going to move back like 15 days, basically, because we allotted 3 to 5 days in there for feedback, and now we're out another 15 days. So it's 115 days then. So 100 days is a pretty reasonable timeline in comparison with a lot of marketing agencies. Some of them are 6 months. The people that can say they get a website done in like 2 weeks, those are usually really bad websites that are built on templates, so they're slow, and they're really hard to edit without messing up the structure of your website. So it's important that you understand unrealistic timelines. Hey, there are people that do websites really, really quick. They're just usually really bad.
And I think what I noticed from my experience is a lot of times clients aren't on the rush side of our timeline. Usually it's on the delayed part of our timeline. And just for you to know, if you're choosing to do a website right now, we're super excited to do this with you, but as much as you can stick to that timeline and commit to yourself to have this be a project that you're really focusing on, it's very important, because if we go a year from when we first got the design finished, your business model probably did change. And so it is very important for you to dedicate the time that you need to get this website done. And this is a living, breathing marketing tool for you, so changes can happen later, but it's really important that if you're gonna do this, that we stick with a timeline so that we can keep our other clients on track and not have huge discrepancies in our timeline.
That's basically what it means to be a partner. We think of ourselves as a partner to your company if you're working with us, not just, a client. We hope to work through those problems with you. Frankly, the fact that we understand these problems is half the battle. We know what they are. We know how to address them. We're good at working through these issues with people. We just are trying to educate our clients so they have a better time in this process. It can be difficult, but it's important to recognize what we're up against. All right. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.
See ya.